speaking up for arts and culture within Georgia to make the case for anybody outside our own community. It's facts, figures, and stories. So while Duda will take care of the stories by way of you all, facts and figures, that's my area. So my pleasure to introduce somebody that I think every one of you knows, Tina Lilly with Georgia Council for the Arts. And, talking to us about state level facts and figures. And we have Julie Wilkerson from Macon Arts Alliance, who I asked to come in to speak more on the regional level and what this kind of information will help for her area. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Patrick and Waduda for having me and also for scheduling this after the GCA grants deadline. Made it a little bit easier for you and me. So welcome. I know a good number of you. For those of you I don't, I'm Tina Lilly with Georgia Council for the Arts. We are the state arts agency in Georgia. We are a government department under the Department of Economic Development. And our mission is to support thriving, vibrant communities in Georgia through the arts. So we do that through grants and several different programs that support the arts industry and also help smaller communities learn how to utilize the arts for economic and community development. Let's see, Patrick, are you doing slides? You have no slides for me? Well, we'll go without the slides. So in your packet today, what you should have gotten when you checked in was an AEP 6 summary sheet and has lots of incredible numbers on it. And what those numbers are the state of Georgia results for our participation in Americans for the Arts, Arts and Economic Prosperity 6 survey. Now, what that is, Americans for the Arts, if you don't know them, you should, and your keynote speaker will tell you much more than I ever could. They are an incredible national organization that does tons of research, but one thing they do is every 5 years or so, they do a national survey, and what's wonderful about it is they're surveying not just arts organizations to find out about your expenses and what you do, but audience members to find out what they're spending when they're there. So last year, GCA participated in this survey for the first time to have statewide arts economic impact figures. There were also 4 communities within Georgia who did their own surveys. Let me grab one of those. Thank you. There were 4 communities within Georgia who participated on their own, City of Atlanta, Macon, Augusta, and Savannah. So each of those communities have their own set of numbers in addition to what I have. Now, all of this information is available on our website, but I wanted to highlight some of the numbers. This summary is also on our website if you need to run off more copies or grab some more at the front desk today. But one thing I will point out, these numbers came from 414 participating Georgia arts organizations. We all know there's way more than 414 arts organizations in Georgia. So if anything, we're lowballing these numbers. So sometimes I know folks say, well, I don't know if I can believe these numbers. Oh, are they up there? Yay! Okay, so 414 participating organizations. So thank you, Patrick. So these are low numbers, but I think they're still impressive. Also, we had audience surveys from 2,700 people all across the state. Sometimes we hear, well, those are numbers just from New York. That's not our numbers. No, these are our numbers, not just from Atlanta. GCA alone had to get surveys from arts organizations outside of those 4 communities participating on their own. So this is all across the state. So total expenditures, and also I'll point out, this was from FY22, as we all know was still a COVID year. So the numbers are undercounted, and it's a COVID year, and total expenditures by arts organizations and audiences in the state is $1.2 billion. So that is what all of the organizations spent in a year, plus what audiences reported that they spent. So if you move down on, make sure I'm, yep. So if you move down on your list, you'll see the first fact is employment jobs. Organizations in the state, by what you spend, are supporting more than 10,000 jobs, and audiences spend supporting more than 9,000 jobs. So they're supporting 19,000 jobs in the state, is what you guys are doing. Personal income, that's the money paid to these folks for doing, yes? They're spending money. They're going to the coffee house before the show and spending money, which we'll show a little more of shortly. They are hiring babysitters. They are staying in hotels. And once you add up all of that, then that's how many jobs they're supporting. And you're going to have an expert talking later on who can answer these questions much more in depth than I can. The next slide, you'll see tax revenue. This is how much the tax that you guys paid plus the audience members on everything that they bought. And you'll see that comes local taxes to $27 million, state taxes to $22 million, and federal to $150 million in taxes, which I think is going to be important to local officials and state legislatures to hear. Next fact, event-related spending by arts and culture audiences. So total attendance at arts events in 22, 16 million people. 16,5, 69, 453. Now the percentage of that audience, 88% were local audiences, and 11% were non-local, meaning they came from someplace else to see your event. Now, this is still a COVID year, so we know good and well that that non-local number in a regular year is going to be much higher. Average per person expenditures, $32 for the locals, $76 for the non-locals, with an average of $37. So the non-locals, you can tell your local officials, are spending a lot more money when they come in. And they're not just spending it at the theater, they're stopping at the bookstore, they're stopping at shops, they're buying coffee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So total event-related expenditures from local and non-local attendees is $706 million that folks, that you and your audience members, or excuse me, not you, your audience members are spending on events when they come to see your performances, exhibits, workshops, etc. So next slide is a breakdown of all those expenses. When folks say, how do you know that this is what they spent? This is a breakdown between local and non-local attendees on what they said they spent and where it was, and how it's spread out all over the community. Again, it's not just dinner. They're buying gas, they're staying overnight, they're buying souvenirs, buying t-shirts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not, again, not just in New York. So next slide, please. So those were all stats from the AEP6. These are stats that are on the back for those of you who got the orange sheet. And again, there's more of those in the front. These are stats just from Georgia Council for the Arts and what we are doing. So in FY23, we made 345 grants totaling $4.8 million. Our grants, we funded programs that were carried out in 124 of 159 counties. And we funded grants for programs that served over 7 million people in the state. So that's what you guys collectively are doing in the state. So what do you do with these numbers? Are there resources, things like that? All of these handouts are on GCA's website. The summary, as well as the orange sheet with the GCA figures. There is also the complete report. It's more than 60 pages long. It has tons of information in it, quotes that you can use, language that you can use when talking about these figures. Also, if you go to Americans for the Arts website, they have lots of things that they're working on and are going to be available soon, such as graphs, charts of all of these figures, PowerPoints where you just stick your logo in and can go with it, and things like that. So I'm sure Randy will give you more deadlines on those. And GCA will continue to post all of the information about the other studies and statistics that are related to Georgia. Yes, we have a question. The question was, how many arts organizations are there in Georgia? Based on the IRS and tax data, which we know sometimes organizations aren't active, and they have, there are 2,200 nonprofit arts organizations in Georgia. And that's not counting cultural organizations such as history museums or the botanical gardens, things like that. Cool. Other questions? Yes.
When you stated the 7.3 million people were reached by, what does that mean? Is that the audience or are those the artists?
Both. The National Endowment for the Arts requires that we ask you in your final report how many adults were reached by the programs that we funded, how many students, and how many artists. So we add those numbers together and you come to 7 million. So it's everything from, a program at a local library to, for instance, if we fund the Alliance Theater for their season, how many saw all of the shows. It also includes things like public art that we fund, and they're just taking their best shot at how many people, again, I think undercounting. But yes, that's what it means. Yes?
Tina, quick question. Are there any studies of the for-profit arts community and the impact that the for-profit arts community also is having on artists in Georgia?
Interesting you say that. The NEA and the Bureau of Economic Analysis, BEA, every year release figures on the creative industries, which is both for-profit and nonprofit arts and entertainment. NASA, National Association of State Arts Agencies, and I can send you the link, breaks it down by state. So there is a state report. Now this is nonprofit and for-profit together. One thing GCA is working on is the next iteration of this orange handout, which will include GCA numbers, AEP 6 numbers, and BEA numbers. So those should come out in March, so give us a second and then we'll have those. There are also studies done of specific industries such as film. Film we got all kinds of numbers on. But yeah, that's where I'd go. Any other sources, Randy?
I'll hit the BEA one this afternoon.
Great, wonderful. Randy will talk more about it this afternoon. Cool. All right, I have one more question, and then I've got to wrap it up. Yeah, I can go down the hole on these, talking about this all day. Yes?
Hi, good morning. Hi, with Opportunity Knots. I wanted to know, does GCA offer technical assistance for organizations applying for grants either through GCA or even with NEA?
Yes. If you're applying to the NEA, we're happy to read through your application and talk through it with you. Just call us. And applying to us, we're happy to meet with you anytime to set up a meeting. So I've got Ann, I'll catch you in a second. But I could talk for hours and hours and hours on this. So my info should be up. Call me, email me with not just grant questions, but do you have statistics on this? Has anybody else done projects like that? And we're glad to help. So thank you.